If you're the Laval Rocket, you're in an elimination game facing the end of your season, down 2-0. What do? Well, you win it in overtime. That's what you do. Well, hello, friends. Welcome back to this week's episode of Habs Hockey Report right here on AllHabs Hockey Magazine's YouTube channel, part of Rocket Sports Media. You can find us at allhabs.net and ahlreport.com. We're so glad that you're here with us today. Thanks for coming back. We've got a great show in store for you today. But first, I guess I should say hello. My name's Amy Johnson. I am the host of the show, also the lead correspondent over at ahlreport.com. And hey, if you're a new viewer and you haven't yet hit that subscribe button, I would invite you to do so today. Hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. We're going to be here every single Thursday all year long. There is no off season here for us at AllHabs Hockey Magazine. We've got plenty of Habs, Laval Rocket, and prospect news to bring you all summer long, so keep it locked in. We're so glad that you're here today. Also wanted to say hello to some new viewers who left a comment last week in the AllHabs roll call. We have Roy, who is a new viewer from Bangkok, Thailand. Hello, Roy, all the way from Thailand. Habs fans really are everywhere. They are all around the world, and we're certainly glad that you're watching all the way from Bangkok. And of course, we have a longtime friend of the organization and publication, Randy, saying hello from St. John, New Brunswick. Great to have you watching the show, Randy, and always great to hear from you. If you haven't let us know where you're watching from, just drop a comment down below. We'll do the roll call again next week for sure. We've got a great show, as I said, for you today. We're going to talk about some Habs news, Carey Price. We're going to talk about analytics, talk a little bit about the draft. You know, we did talk about that first overall draft selection last week, but going to give you a little more information on that if you'd like to learn more about what the Canadiens could do with that pick. And in fact, if you remember, that was my feedback forum question last week, was what do you want the Canadiens to do with that first overall selection at this year's entry draft? So we're going to get to those responses and read those responses and talk about them later in the show. But first, let's get you thinking about this week's feedback forum question. The question is, how much importance and weight do you put on hockey analytics? Analytics is increasingly becoming a very hot topic over the last number of years in terms of sports in general, but particularly for hockey. And as you see teams starting to build analytics departments, and that came up in the news for the Canadiens this week. But what do you as a fan, how much weight do you put on hockey analytics? How important do you think it is for yourself from a fan perspective, but also how important do you think it is for teams to rely on analytics as well? So drop your comments. I'm really curious and interested to see what you have to say about this one, because this can be a pretty polarizing topic depending on who you talk to. Looking forward to reading those answers next week on the show. Yes, it may be the off season, but we've got plenty of Habs happenings to talk to you about, so we won't waste any time. First, though, I got to say, are you enjoying the Stanley Cup playoffs, despite the fact that the Habs aren't in it? I know I am. There's been some series already that have been pretty exciting to watch, and boy, oh boy, did the Battle of Alberta start in style in the second round. My goodness, really fun to watch. The Battle of Florida is going to be very exciting as well. I think Tampa Bay, Florida. Who you got? Particularly with plenty going to overtime. There's been really tight games, but there's also been blowouts. I mean, it's just It's entertaining. What can I say? It's playoff hockey. We love it. We first, of course, this week want to tip our hat to Carey Price, who was announced as one of the 3 finalists for the Bill Masterton Trophy. You see there, of course, it's going to come down to Zdeno Chara with the New York Islanders, Kevin Hayes with the Philadelphia Flyers, and Carey Price. It's Carey Price has had a long and storied history with the Montreal Canadiens. Some of it very positive, some of it a little more of a struggle. Whether it's been injuries for him, whether it's been his personal struggles this year, whether it's been a fan base that didn't necessarily fully accept him at first, or even on a continuing basis. You've heard Carey Price say at times that he wasn't sure if the fans in Montreal even liked him, for a guy who's probably a future Hall of Famer and one of the best goaltenders in the world. So it's nice to see Carey Price getting this honor, being selected as one of the 3 finalists, and we're just going to have to wait to see if he's the one that ends up accepting the Masterton Trophy award. So congratulations to Carey Price for that. The next item has to do with that feedback forum question. We talked about analytics. Well, and whether or not you find it important. When Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton were both brought on board this year, they talked about analytics and feeling the need that the Canadiens organization was lacking in the analytics arena. And so they've made their first hire to get that started, hiring Christopher Boucher as the director of hockey analytics for the Canadiens. And he's going to oversee what Kent Hughes has said is going to be a department. So it's likely that he's going to bring on other analysts. And Christopher Boucher, of course, has spent the last 2 years as a pro scout for the San Jose Sharks. But before that, he had a lot of time spent in the sports analytics industry as part of Sportlogique, based in Quebec. And so he brings a lot of experience, and it's going to be very interesting to see how he builds out this department. He's going to be responsible for talking to, coaches and players and training staff and so forth about statistics, about analytics, using the data to better shape what the Canadiens roster needs, how players can be better utilized. But how he shapes this department, the type of people he brings in to surround himself and round out this department, I think is all going to be very interesting. But it is a first step forward for the Montreal Canadiens as they really start to focus on analytics. For my liking, I certainly have no qualms with an analytics department, as long as there is a good balance of analytics and just hockey common sense as well, the eye test, as you would say. Analytics tell you a big story. Analytics can tell you all sorts of stories, but they can't tell you the complete story. That requires interpersonal communication, that requires physically watching players and teams play and evaluating them through the eye test and what you see on the ice, how they respond to things off the ice, what they do in their training. There's so much more to building a roster, shaping a roster, and helping players to succeed than just analytics. So I'm very pleased to see that they're starting with a director of hockey analytics, and we'll just have to wait to see how it all shapes out. Last but not least, before we wrap up this segment, we talked a lot last week about the utter excitement of the Canadiens winning the draft lottery after such a horrible season to endure. They won the draft lottery. It means they'll get the first overall pick with the draft. And we're gonna in a segment later in the show, I'm gonna read a lot of your responses as to what you think the Canadiens should do with that pick. But really, we wanted to speak to someone who's an expert in this and talk about not only Shane Wright, but some of the other top picks that Montreal could select if they don't go the Shane Wright route. Guess what? I mean, it's not a slam dunk that they're going to pick Shane Wright. There's a good probability that they will, but it's certainly not set in stone yet. So who are the top prospects? What is their scouting report? What else could the Canadiens do with their later first round pick and their early second round pick? Well, to answer all of those questions, I joined Rick Stevens on our Canadiens Connection podcast this past week, and we sat down for an interview with our good friend Jerome Berube, who is the director of scouting for hockeyprospect.com. They publish the Hockey Prospect Prospect Black Book every year. It's pretty much the scouting Bible for the draft. And Jerome is the director of scouting for hockeyprospect.com. We sat down with him to explore all of that. So if you click on the link above, I invite you to listen to that podcast and that interview. It's going to really set you up well for all of the options of what we can expect, and not necessarily expect, but the options that the Canadiens could have available to them for their selections in both the first and second round. It's a great interview and you don't want to miss it. Well, the Laval Rocket train just keeps on chugging. Let me tell you, we talked last week about the fact that they were in a dead heat with the Syracuse Crunch in the North Division semifinal series, best of 5 series. They ended up also, not only did they split the 2 road games 2 weeks ago, they also then ended up splitting the 2 home games, and that forced a Game 5 elimination game in Syracuse on Tuesday night this week. Talk about tension. It was electrifying. It was nerve-wracking. We saw Caden Primo get the 4th consecutive start. He's been the go-to ever since Game 2. JF Houle also went back to 11-7. He's done that for 3 or 4 games in the series as well. And it was tense. Benoit Gruel with a little bit of gamesmanship. His starting goaltender, Max Legacy, went out of Game 4 10 minutes into the game with an injury. And up to the day of Game 5, Gruel was telling reporters that Max Legacy was not going to be able to go for Game 5, that they were going to have to slot in Hugo Onefelt, a rookie netminder who would make his first postseason start in the AHL, which that's a lot of pressure for a young goaltender. Well, sure enough, warm-ups come around, and who leads the Syracuse Crunch out onto the ice? None other than Max Legacy, the starting goaltender. He was just fine to play, and so that was pretty solid gamesmanship by Benoit Gruel. It was an exciting game. It didn't look good at first. Laval struggled in the first period and found themselves trailing the Syracuse Crunch 2-0 in this game. And Syracuse was shutting things down defensively. They just couldn't control the puck very well. They couldn't clear their zone very well. And the second half of the game, that really started to be problematic as Laval started to find their legs and really started to pressure, really started to forecheck. Cedric Paquette tied the game 2-2 with 38 seconds left in regulation. 38 seconds away from their series ending, Cedric Paquette finds the equalizer. They go to overtime. It's pretty frenzied in overtime. Gabriel Bourque potting the OT winner because Syracuse could not get the puck out of their zone again. And Laval is advancing to the division finals. What a night. What an experience. It's now they wait. They don't know yet who their opponent is going to be. We know that the series is going to start likely on Sunday this week, but they have to wait for the Rochester Americans versus Utica Comets series to end. That'll end on Thursday night with their Game 5. Coming back to Utica for Game 5. So the winner of that series will face the Laval Rocket. It'll also determine who has home ice advantage. If they're going to play the Utica Comets, then Utica will have home ice. If Laval ends up facing Rochester, Laval will have home ice. So we just have to wait to see. But in speaking with head coach Jean-Francois Houle earlier today, actually, I was able to join our colleague Patrick Williams on a Zoom call with Jean-Francois Houle, and he had plenty to say about both how the Syracuse series went and what's in front of them, regardless of who their opponent is.
We were in that position in the regular season quite a bit actually this year, where we were down 2-0. So I think you learn from the regular season. And our motto has always been never too high, never too low, and try to stay calm. And, we found a way to come back. We made a really good push in the third, to come back and win. But as a series as a whole, it was an excellent series. It was physical, really good team in Syracuse who played us really hard. They played really well defensively. It was hard for us to muster any any chances, especially 5-on-5. They played really well, and they could have went either way. But we're happy that we finished on top. Obviously, first moments after the win, the guys were ecstatic. It was a great feeling to hear the guys cheer and be happy, and everybody with a smile. And as Syracuse was an excellent opponent, and for us, it was a big win. We need to get over the hump, and it's a great feeling. But now we have a job ahead of us, so that's why we don't want to, remain too high. And I think practice today was perfect. It wasn't. It was short but to the point, and everybody's in a good mood, and they're just waiting for tonight to see who we're going to play.
Is there a preference for who you're going to face in the next round, or do you see kind of an equal challenge regardless of whether it's the Comets or the Amerks?
I think it's an equal challenge. I mean, they're both excellent teams. They both got quite a bit of players down from the NHL, which makes them dangerous. And they're different teams than they were a month or a month and a half ago. Rochester's got a lot of young talent. Same with Utica. They both have speed. They both play hard. So, they're kind of similar, and that's why it's going to game 5, and that's why it's been a tight series, just like ours. So, two good opponents, and, I picture it to be the same thing as Syracuse. It's going to be tight hockey. You're going to have to be disciplined, and, the team that wants it the most is probably going to win, but it's going to be good hockey games.
The Laval Rocket in the Calder Cup playoff North Division final starting this weekend. As we've done all season long, we at AHLreport.com, we will have complete coverage for you. You can just find us at AHLreport.com or at the AHL Report on Twitter. We do live game updates throughout each game, so make sure you're following us. Check out the full game recaps to keep apprised of how the Habs prospects are doing down on the farm as their bid for the Calder Cup is continuing. I tell you every week that the Habs Fan Hub is one of my favorite segments in the show, and that's because we get to talk to you and with you and hear from you, our fans. So thanks so much for being here and for sending in all of your comments, your photos, your questions. We love all of it. We're going to start with a Show Your Habs submission by our friend Fotini. You see right there, she got to witness their home win last Thursday, and you see right there she tagged hashtag Show Your Habs playoff win at home. Looked like she had some pretty good seats too. So thanks so much for your submission, Fotini. If you've got pictures that you're going to post of you being a great Habs or Laval Rocket fan or just hockey fan at all throughout this summer, make sure you tag those posts, hashtag Show Your Habs. We'll share those right here on the show. We also have a question in the AllHabs mailbag. Remember, if you have a question about the Habs, about prospects, about the Laval Rocket, just submit your question in the comments section below. We'll put it in the AllHabs mailbag and answer it on a future episode. And today, our question comes from Paul. He says, seeing we have so many picks and prospects, do we package some and go after Columbus and Buffalo's second picks in the first round? They're in the top 16, and there would be some high-end wingers there for Wright's line. Paul obviously thinking they're going to go with Shane Wright. And Paul, thanks so much for your question. I think that Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon are probably going to try to get creative. They might move up in the draft. They might try to move up. Yes, they've got the first overall pick, but if there's another top-end prospect that they really want to get their hands on, you might see them package something definitely to try to move up in the draft and not take lower at the end of the first round. So it's a possibility that could be with Columbus or with Buffalo. It is again something we discussed with Jerome Berube from Hockey Prospect on that Canadiens Connection podcast, if you'd like to listen to that, and the potential for them to possibly trade up to get not only their top pick with the first overall pick, but also to get another, maybe mid-range or, between 10 and 15 pick, which could be pretty exciting and could be pretty significant for the Canadiens if they were able to get two really quality guys like that. So great question. Thanks for submitting it. And again, if you've got questions about anything regarding the Montreal Canadiens, just drop us a comment down below and we'll answer it. Now, of course, reminder that this week's feedback forum question is, how much importance do you put on hockey analytics? Now that Christopher Boucher has been hired to direct the hockey analytics department for the Montreal Canadiens, how much stock do you think a team and a franchise should put on analytics, and how much do you put into analytics as a fan? And last week I asked, with that first overall pick, what would you like to see the Canadiens do with it? Do they take Shane Wright? Is there a different top prospect that you would prefer to see them take instead of Shane Wright? Do you want to see them trade away the pick? There's lots of possibilities. And as we had just heard from Paul with his mailbag question, he also had a response to this feedback form question. He says, Shane Wright. I went and saw him play in my hometown of Kingston last night. He's a high-end player, but not elite except in 3 areas. Hockey sense and vision is high. His shot is scary for goalies. Example, on a 2-on-1, he elected to shoot rather than pass. He rung it off the post. Goalie didn't move. And he also says, what impressed me most was his passing vision and accuracy. It's tremendous that you happen to live in Kingston and were able to go watch Shane Wright and the Frontenacs play so that you could do that eye test for yourself. There are a lot of fans like yourself who are definitely all on board the Shane Wright train and look and expect and hope to see Shane Wright be the selection for the Montreal Canadiens. He's been the expected first overall pick for a number of years. I mean, this is a guy who had exceptional status, granted exceptional status at a very young age, and it's his name has been at the top of the list for a long time. And so it's a guy who a lot of people are hoping and expecting to be wearing a CH at the draft, and we're just going to have to wait and see. Darcy also wrote in and says, Montreal has a chance to become strong down the middle, which has been lacking for years. You can't pass that up. Darcy, thank you for your comment. I agree with you, and that speaks more to don't trade the pick away. You can't pass up an opportunity to get some center strength. And yes, center strength has not always been a strong point for the Montreal Canadiens over the past number of years, particularly since they've really struggled. I mean, development has been an overarching struggle for the Canadiens under the Bergevin era. It's been a lot of years since they've had a good development system going and really worked hard to transition their prospects to the NHL game. That has been something they've struggled with for years. Center development has been an issue, and so I agree. You can't pass up. I don't think that they're going to trade away the first overall pick. It'd be a little hard, particularly after the year that they just endured. It'd be a little hard to stomach watching them give away that first overall pick. So thank you for your comment. I look forward to reading some great comments from all of you this next week about this week's feedback forum question. And hey, if you're a relatively new viewer, again, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, but also you might not be aware that we do exclusive interviews here on Habs Hockey Report, including this one right here with Jesse Ylönen, promising winger, could be on the NHL roster next year. Check that out, and we'll see you back here next Thursday on Habs Hockey Report.